do privilege and climate change have in common? Well, they both exist, even if you think they don't. Privilege. As far as some people are concerned, privilege should be lumped with Bigfoot and UFOs as something a few folks are convinced exist, but can't show any compelling evidence to prove it. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's very real. Contrary to what right-wing pundits and radical white supremacists would have you believe, pretending privilege doesn't exist doesn't make it disappear. It's not Tinkerbell, folks. So what is privilege? In simple terms, privilege theory argues that each individual is embedded in a matrix of categories and contexts, and will be in some way—
Anita, do you mind if I try something here?
Sure.
Great. Okay, so to help illustrate the concept of privilege, let's imagine we're creating a character in a video game. Now, ours is an open world game that's designed to be very realistic and models real-life situations and challenges, school, work, relationships, and so on. It's a meticulously crafted, expansive recreation of—
No, we don't have a budget for that.
Right. Okay, well, hey, just play along. In order to accurately simulate real life, the programmers have made it so that the world of the game will treat you very differently, depending on the choices you make when creating your character. Starting with the first choice the game gives you. If you want the easier option, you put the gender setting on male. Set it to female, and you have to contend with sexism in the game's world. Set it to non-binary, and you'll face misunderstandings, social exclusion, and the constant challenge of living in a world that isn't designed to accommodate you. Game characters who have the setting on male have the privilege of not having to deal with any of that.
Whoa, not having to deal with sexism would be awesome.
Right? You want to try?
Yeah, okay, so it looks like race is up next. Obviously, white is going to be the easiest option here, right?
Yep. Choose anything else on the spectrum, and you're going to be subject to some form of racism, which could manifest in countless ways. Good luck graduating from a decent school, finding a decent job, or qualifying for a lone hypothetical player character. You can get there, but it's almost always going to be harder. And as a bonus, people will assume you got there through some sort of affirmative action game hack. Oh, and any random interaction with law enforcement might result in your death. There's no such thing as a perfect run for you. Those who play as white characters enjoy the privilege of not having to worry about that.
They sure do. Oh, are you making a character for Real Life Simulator 2K18?
Yeah, we sure are. And the next option is whether our character is cis or trans.
Surprise! Cis is way easier. Some of the scenarios the developers have created for those playing as trans characters are a real nightmare. And not like in some Dark Souls, oh, what a satisfying challenge kind of way. I'm talking stuff nobody wants or should have to deal with.
Wow, so there's also an option to select what class you're born into. I want to see what it's like to be in the 1%.
That's called playing on easy mode. Sip champagne on your yacht, secure in the knowledge that many people will assume you're somehow smarter, more attractive, or more worthy of the protection of the law simply because you're rich. Hell, you don't even have to be a member of the 1% to experience an easier time in the game. How about just being comfortably middle class and never having to choose between buying groceries or having the bus fare to get to work? As a side quest, no one wins. Basically, if your player character is poor or working class, you're going to spend a huge chunk of your electronic life facing a never-ending stream of soul-sucking challenges. And that's incomprehensible to people who have money.
And it looks like that's just scratching the surface. There are so many other options here that can have a tremendous impact on your experience. Where you land on the sexuality spectrum, whether you're able-bodied or disabled. The list really goes on.
Yeah, and for each individual setting, there's one option that matches what society considers normal, and therefore gives you the privilege of not facing any oppression or social injustice as a result. And then there are options that bring with them a host of obstacles and oppressions.
Come on. We all know this whole concept of normal is ludicrous. There's no normal setting on human beings. An able-bodied, cisgender, straight white man is no more normal than a queer trans Japanese guy or a disabled Nigerian woman or anyone else.
Right. It's nonsense like heteronormativity and cisnormativity that helps perpetuate the oppression of queer and trans folks. You see, our culture treats heterosexuality as the normal setting and views other sexualities as deviations from that. Similarly, under cisnormativity, so being cisgendered, which means having a gender identity that meshes with the gender you were assigned at birth, That's viewed as the standard setting, and trans people are seen as other.
And of course, white and male are wrongly viewed as the default settings on race and gender. People who fall within the normative groups in our culture have the privilege of, well, being seen as normal in that way, and not having to deal with all the discrimination that can occur when you're seen as something else.
Now, a lot of people like to respond to these arguments by saying things like, hey, I'm an able-bodied, cisgender, straight white guy, and I haven't had it easy. And you know what, Kevin? Tremendous obstacles and hardships can occur in anyone's life. But there's a clear and important distinction. Any hardships an able-bodied, cisgender, straight white man faces in our culture aren't specifically a result of them being able-bodied, cisgender, straight white, or male. Those are all privileged groups who don't have to deal with the discrimination that members of other groups have to deal with. This is about systemic issues that affect people because of the disadvantaged populations that they belong to. And remember, just because you experience privilege in one area of your life doesn't mean that you do in others. You might be a straight white man, but remember the class setting? Surprise! If you're poor, some of the advantages you thought you had are no longer available to you.
We used the example of a game to explore issues of privilege, but of course, none of us create our characters before playing real life. None of us opt into any of these forms of social injustice, and none of us earn the advantages that come with whatever forms of privilege we possess. It can sometimes be difficult to see our own privilege, because often that privilege is simply that we benefit from not having to face the oppressions that other folks do, which puts us at an advantage. In White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, scholar and anti-racism activist Peggy McIntosh identified 26 ways that she benefits from white privilege, including, I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me. If a traffic cop pulls me over, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. And when I am told about my national heritage or about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is.
Now maybe you're a white person who thinks, but I'm one of the nice ones. I individually don't do anything to actively contribute to the oppression of people of color. And maybe you don't, but it doesn't change the fact that you benefit from being white, and other folks are disadvantaged because they're not. No one is asking you to apologize to them directly because your ancestors owned slaves. We are asking you to recognize that the systems put in place by your forefathers still disproportionately benefit you. So here's your straw man back.
A lot of us are resistant to recognizing our privilege. We might feel like we're being made to feel guilty because we belong to a privileged group. But saying stuff like, well, excuse me for being white, is really not a good look. These conversations are not about guilt, and feeling defensive about it doesn't help anyone. This is about taking responsibility and doing our part to recognize and dismantle these unjust systems.
The truth is that most of us exist with some combination of unearned advantage and unearned disadvantage. And we can only begin to address that once we acknowledge that these systems exist and that we probably have some privilege within them ourselves.
Hope you found this video helpful. We'd love it if you share this episode with your friends and family. Join us in our next episode when we kick things up a notch by bringing intersectionality into the mix. See you then. Help us keep making this show by donating at feministfrequency.com/donate.